Figure 4 Radio.
Lock it in.
Lock it in.
Lock it in. Lock it in.
Lock it in.
Figure 4 Radio.
Hello everyone, welcome to Figure 4 Radio. My name is the Mastermind, Ollie Spring, and continuing with our recent run of guests, we've got a returning guest, I guess is the best way to put it. It's been a while since you've been on. It's the one and only MC Cryptid, Toby Hagen.
What up everyone, it's good to be back, thanks for having me.
So for a long time, we've kind of promised we'd do like a JCW podcast.
Yeah.
And I'd never really seen much. You've loaned me JCW volumes 1, 2 and 3.
And the Stranglemania discs as well, which are not really JCW, but still entertaining nevertheless.
I'll take your word for it, because I must admit I haven't watched that one. Only because I've seen the actual tournament itself. I don't know, I've watched it once. It wasn't the best tournament ever, but I've watched it, I've seen it. I've kind of, I've done that one, so I can move on now. But yeah, so basically what we're doing, I was kind of worried that we were only going to cover a very small part of JCW. One thing I found that's quite cool though, on Wikipedia, apparently volumes 1, 2 and 3 covers Juggalo Championship Wrestling, before they then morphed into Championship Wrestling. So technically we're doing the entire back catalogue of Championship Wrestling, which makes me feel better because I'm a completionist, and yeah, you know what I'm like with my spreadsheets and my watching everything. So basically we sat down and watched Juggalo Championship Wrestling Volume 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah, which is basically a snapshot of about 4 years to give Juggalos at least a place in time. This is from the tail end of the Amazing Jekyll Brothers and the Bizarre Bazaar albums up to the release of the Wraith. I'm going to say the Wraith Shangri-La for sure, possibly the Hell's Pit era because Shaggy Two Dope still had the dreads.
No idea what the fuck you just said. So we've got the snapshot basically. We've watched everything. Now, before we recorded, before we pressed play on Volume 1, I did say to you that if there was absolutely nothing any good on this, on any of these, we wouldn't do it, because I didn't want to just basically go on podcasts and just tear them a new one and just say nothing positive. I'm not a negative person. I like to focus on the positives. So we, luckily, well, as you can tell, we're recording the podcast. There was some things that I liked.
You were able to glean enough to at least get together a top 5, if you will.
I found enough glitter to roll the turd in.
Can I just give a little background to what the tone of JCW is for?
Oh yeah, no. Well, because without a doubt, we're not watching fucking WrestleMania 17 here. We were
exactly.
watching. It was kind of ECW-esque. Kind of, I think in a way the production was potentially better than some ECW well, if you to take the best of JCW and the worst of ECW, but ultimately it was very ECW-esque, I think is a safe way to put it.
Yeah, I mean JCW definitely has its kind of roots in that ECW era. It
kind
takes
of DIY almost, like we haven't got the money, but fuck it, we're going to do it anyway. Like, we don't care what people think.
Exactly. It attracts the hardcore audience, so what you'll get is not necessarily genuinely good wrestling, but you will get some shit you will never see anywhere else. You'll get hardcore matches, death matches, naked women, like all kinds of stuff. It's madness.
As far as things that you won't get anywhere else, I think the only thing I saw that I don't think I'd see anywhere else was that woman literally just get naked and then get powerbombed through a table. I've seen women powerbombed through tables. I haven't seen a woman just, well, not strip down and then just be allowed to be butt naked on camera. Everything else, though, to see that's the thing. I don't know if I'd say that you can't get it anywhere else, because I think I probably could. But and as I will say, we've watched recently at Killer Kai's house. We watched some CZW, which was kind of like what we watched today, just with better production values and more shit to break. Right. But yeah, generally speaking, it's low. We'll call it low budget wrestling.
Let's do that.
Low budget. I think that's the safest way to say it without offending anyone involved.
It appeals to the more base needs of an immature mind, let's say. It's you know, the gimmicks are over the top, the wrestling is over the top, the bumps are over the top, and to cap it all, you've got ICP doing the commentary over it, where they do not take themselves seriously whatsoever. I think
that was potentially the most entertaining part. The commentary was certainly, well, Well, I don't know. See, a lot of it was. I mean, I laughed at them in bits, but that's. I mean, I probably laughed at about 20% of what they were saying, and the rest was just there as noise in a way. But they did say some funny stuff. Now, one thing that isn't going to make my list, but there was across volumes 1, 2, and 3. There was matches between the Rude Boy versus Abdullah the Butcher. Yeah. I mean, the wrestling was shit in all 3 matches. I'm not gonna try and sugarcoat that. It was awful wrestling. I loved the fact. Well, that was the only story between all 3 things. So Abdullah absolutely, just squashed the fuck out of him in the first one. Then he put up a bit of a fight in the second match, and in the third match it ended in a bit of a pull-away brawl. So it had a building story between the 3, which I enjoyed. It had been so long since I've watched these DVDs that I'd actually forgotten that had come out. So when it started, I was like, here we go, going through the motions, volume 3, nothing's changed, blah, blah, blah. And it was the same match ultimately, barring the last 2 minutes of each. It did have
a bit of a payoff, there is actually, I noticed, kind of 3 trilogies, if you will. I'm just curious to know if you noticed the other 2. Okay, well, one of them would be
Tom Dubb seemed to go against in number 1 he was up against King Kong Bundy and got killed. In number 2 he was volume 2 he was against that guy that was like 700 pounds,
the hornswaggling hillbilly,
fattest person I've seen in a ring ever. I mean, he makes Yokozuna look like a fucking bodybuilder. He was horribly big.
Yeah, well, what we were just saying about you're going to see something here that you've never seen normally.
That guy there was the only other person. I mean, where I'm up to at the moment in my network viewing, Viscera's still around, and he's kind of the only big guy. But once again, this guy looked like 2 of Viscera. It was just,
when you see those photographs, it's like world's fattest man.
Yeah,
he
that was
like
him.
That. And somehow he was mobile. He was walking around.
Well, he just about got into the ring. But yeah, that was. I think I gave that match half a star. And then Tom Dubb faced Kamala, the Ugandan giant, in the other one. I gave that one 1.5 stars. As far as I didn't really spot any other trilogies.
Well, the other trilogies would be basically ICP doing the main event, just
winning everything because it's their promotion. But that's fine. I mean, they didn't sugarcoat it. They said, "Look, fuck it. This is our promotion. We're going to put ourselves over. We don't care."
Yeah.
Actually, another thing I noticed, obviously knowing you from your podcasting with us and your brief stint at commentary and your ring announcing, watching JCW 1, 2, and 3. Immediately made me realise where you get your wrestling lingo from. Yeah. You were because the amount of times that I've heard you use the term "he's blown up," and he's going over, or he's over this.
I say no sell a lot.
Oh yeah, 3 things: was blown up, over, and no sell. The ICP use that an awful lot, and everywhere else you don't really see. Well, you never hear anyone say no sell because that's just fucking breaking kayfabe beyond belief. No one ever really says blown up either.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to point out that the wrestler's knackered. And then the going over, it's like 3 insider terms that, generally speaking, you never ever hear on commentary or interviews or anything ever, because it's a very insider term that you don't want to really put out there. And
it's a bit of a taboo thing to use that terminology.
And ICP just just didn't care.
Yeah.
So that was different, I guess. But yeah, so I can immediately see exactly where you get your wrestling lingo from. It puts it all into perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you can also tell, I think, why whenever we watch things on the network, or even with my commentary I did with you guys for a bit on the what were they? The Halloween 2014 matches or something?
2004, yeah, or maybe even 13. No, it can't be 13.
I think it was 14. But yeah, I'm always looking for something that's got a bit, because it's not that I look for anything that's like you would see on JCW and anything else, but it's just so what I'm used to after stepping out of wrestling. Like I stopped when the 80s era ended, or the new generation, whatever they called it, like pre-Attitude. And then I got back into wrestling because of JCW, so it was a complete polar opposite from like the slow pace and methodical nature of old school wrestling versus this stuff. So now, wrestling is what it is today, and it's again, to me, it's like completely different flavors. So yeah, it's always that's what I'm looking for, especially at indie shows, like the live things.
The last thing I noticed as well was ICP. I don't think they correctly used a wrestler's name once, and they would consistently miss core moves, so they'd just make up a name every time a move was hit, and it's the chicken wing buster breaker that he just hit, and like it just for when actually in reality he just fell on top of him accidentally.
It was like I said I referred to a move in one of the
what do you call it, a windmill suplex?
A windmill drop,
just for a vertical suplex, just a plain old vertical suplex,
because he spun him around, so I called it a windmill drop. But that's that's the nature of the basically the commentaries and the shows are done almost like from a comedy point of view, like you're not supposed to take them seriously, and all that kind of stuff. It's entertainment over substance, if you will.
Now I guess from my perspective, when I'm kind of looking at my top 5, I'm going to basically be, for anybody that's curious about anything, I'm going to hopefully try and stop you from watching anything that I felt was awful and direct you towards the good stuff. Now, JCW, one thing I will say for them, they did get progressively better. And if you compare the best match from Volume 3 to the worst match from Volume 1, in theory, if they continued that arc of improvement, they'd be making an NXT TakeOver special by now.
I mean, JCW is now a very different beast.
I'm sure it is.
We're 12 years on,
but that's championship. We're looking at championship,
exactly.
I guess. And I guess this almost turns into a kind of a shit list pod, but we're trying to look at I'm trying to find the best 5.
Let's start with number 5 first.
The thing that scares me the most from what you've said is that you've actually given a match 5 stars on this.
That's because I knew what I was getting into before we started this, so I've kind of given it ratings based on its own terms.
Okay. See, I'm giving it a rating, a universal rating, but just I think that the best match I had was 3 out of 5, and that was potentially pushing it really. My number 5 was the only match that I've potentially seen elsewhere. I know that Botchamania has used parts of this match before. Was Madman Pondo versus Necro Butcher from Volume 3. I give that 2 out of 5. It was a very, anyone that's listened to any of our podcasts, if you listen to this and you haven't heard the others, go back and check out the Hardcore podcast, go back and check out the Gimmick, the 2-part Gimmick podcast. I don't like trash matches, and this match was very much a trash match. It was fucking light tubes just smashed everywhere,
garbage cans,
there's a garbage can, there's some chairs and a stop sign. It was, to me, it was just a trash match, but that was the best I could scrape as far as the number 5.
We also had technical difficulties watching that match at one point. The DVD broke.
The disc decided to. It was such a poor match. The disc was like, "Fuck this! I'm having a break. I can't deal with this." What was your number 5?
My number 5, I've got Fat Fuck Barrel Boy versus Madman Pondo from JCW Volume 2.
I would have had that potentially if there was nothing better on Volume 3. That would have potentially made my list. I still only gave it 1.5, so it was half a star worse. That was the first match I think that had, I don't know, some kind of premeditated spots in a way. I think.
Looking at my notes now, I've just got it was a fun indie death match with a great finisher, which was Madman Pondo literally diving off of a balcony at the venue.
Yes, that's why I would have given it that, because that dive. They said it was 45 feet. I don't think it was as high as...
everything is exaggerated on these
commentaries. Well, hey, anyone that's listened to mine and Kai's old commentary, I think we saw Nate Nitro fall off a 70-foot seating ramp, and Andy Rain has something like 20 kids. Wow. We always went for that approach. But I'll give him his props for jumping off that, because that took a bit of balls. And I love the way that I think we should, if you ever watch Volume 2 yourself, play a drinking game. Every time they say the phrase "Fat Fuck Barrel Boy," take a shot. By the end of the match, you'll probably be in hospital getting your stomach pumped. I think they realised it was such a bad name that they just kept saying it over and over and over and over.
Do you know what it reminded me of? There's the Cape Fear rip-off episode of The Simpsons, and Sideshow Bob is strapped under the car, and they have to move away because Sideshow Bob's coming after them. And he crawls out from under the car and he treads on the rake, and then he walks on and then he walks onto another one. And the joke, it goes for 9. They do it 3 times, so he walks into that rake 9 times total. And on it's funny at first, and then it gets like, okay, we get the joke, and then it goes full circle and it
comes back to being funny again. Yeah.
And that's what I think the Fat Fuck Barrel Boy thing did.
Yeah, and that was his actual name, Fat Fuck Barrel Boy.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed, they weren't so keen on giving people good names. My number 4 on the list. So my first one was Pondo and Necro. 4 was ICP versus Feminem and Kid Cock. So they were taking the piss out of Eminem and Kid Rock. I don't know. I mean, I gave it 2.5 stars. I think just because they had moves, they were doing moves which not a lot of other matches had. It was just hitting each other with weapons. I mean, there was a lot of squash matches over all 3 volumes. I mean, I'll just say this now: not a single match from JCW Volume 1 got anywhere near my top 5. So yeah, it was just shit, to be honest. It was like half a star, 1 star, 1 star, half a star, 1 star.
You could barely
1.5.
Yeah.
It was awful. I think the best thing about it is we got to see some tits in that chick's locker room.
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
Angel.
about it.
She had some really nice boobs, actually.
Yeah, best boobs out of all 3. Well, out of the 4 tits we saw in total, 2 of those were an Angel. I think just because ICP were using moves, there was like hip drops and vertical suplexes, brain busters. We saw a suicide dive, and it looked like Kid Cock could actually wrestle. Feminem not so much. I don't know who those guys were, but yeah, I don't know. Just because it had some move variety, and it lasted longer than 12 seconds.
One thing I noticed is that every single ICP match was the longest, and it had the most.
Yeah.
It had the most like wrestling, if you will.
Without that, so almost like they were trying to, as they were clearly booking the show as well. They tell everyone else before them, "You've got 2 minutes. Don't do anything. Just you go and win, hit each other a few times, and that's it.
Yeah.
We'll still pay you." But yeah, what was your number 4?
My number 4 was Josh Prohibition versus M-Dog 20.
Yeah.
Now, the reason that this doesn't go higher up on the list, because it was a fantastic match, I think. Number 1, there was a horrendous rope snap.
Oh man,
where M-Dog 20.
I don't know how he didn't die.
He looks like the rope snaps and he plummets onto his head, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
So that of course had a knock-on effect. So everything on volume. This is the first match of Volume 3. Every match after that, they only have the top and the bottom rope. There's no middle rope.
Ultimate botch at the end of the day, really.
Exactly. But yeah, the match has good momentum. There's good spots, but then inexplicably, and of course it sets up the heat for the main event later on the disc. Shane Douglas just shows up.
Yeah,
and,
that did kind of piss me off. It was a flat ending. I think they deserve better, really. Possibly the best just pure wrestling match, I think, on the entire 3 volumes. Well, as far as skill goes, they were the 2 most skilled guys, I think.
Yeah, apparently during this time that this was recorded, both competitors had like a feud going on in other promotions.
I did a bit of reading up. They'd been tag team partners and did the usual tag team thing where they turned on each other.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, Kai will be interested to know M-Dog 20 actually goes on to become Son of Havoc in Lucha Underground.
Yeah.
So he's probably one of the few people that actually has a career out of wrestling. Kind of on these 3 discs.
Well, there's one more, but we'll get to him later.
I think Madman Pondo and Necro Butcher. Well, Necro Butcher definitely did, and then there's at least one more. Yeah. So your number 4 was Prohibition and M-Dog 20.
Yeah.
My number 3 was the only match that wasn't on Volume 3.
My number 3 was actually ICP versus Feminem and Kid Cock.
Okay, so we both appreciated that match.
Yeah.
That's good. My number 3 was from Volume 2 was Haziah versus Chris Hero, and Chris Hero, one of the only. Well, I mean, if you ignore the returning legends of people like Iron Sheik, who really shouldn't have been in a wrestling ring, King Kong Bundy, Abdullah the Butcher, and Kamala, he's the only one that's been in WWE in any kind of. Well, I suppose ICP did as well. Sorry, that's my mistake. But yeah, basically, he's the only one that went on to have any major indie success.
Didn't you tell me that at one point he was considered for the Shield?
He was meant to be the 3rd man in the Shield, but Vince McMahon preferred Roman Reigns. The story was, if you believe him at least, CM Punk went to Vince and said, "Look, I want to put together a unit to protect me and give me some heat. I want to grab Tyler Black. I want to grab John Moxley, who went on to become Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, respectively. And I want Chris Hero, who was called Cassius Ohno at the time. Vince was like, I'll take the first 2. We'll take Ambrose. We'll take Rollins, but I want Roman Reigns instead. He looks better as the leader." And Chris Hero was that close to becoming.
Can you imagine like having to live with that, like knowing how close?
I mean, that's if CM Punk is telling the truth. So allegedly that's the story. I guess you never really know. But yeah, that match was kind of the first match I'd seen, because Volume 1 was just shit. Volume 2 started off with that £700 like 5 men rolled into one squash match. This was the first match with anybody that had any sort of skill, I think, without trying to write off everybody else. But there was 2 actual wrestlers, and I love the way that it was billed on the DVD as the "Who the fuck are these guys" match. So they've basically taken the only 2 legitimate wrestlers and called them "Who the fuck are these guys?"
Yeah.
And then everybody else that can't wrestle for shit has been given names and gimmicks and all this. So that was kind of funny. But that made my number 3. I gave that 2.5 stars. As I did with ICP and Feminem Kid Cock, that got 2.5 as well.
Yeah. That ICP versus Feminem and Kid Cock, that was my number 3. And my number 2 was actually Chris Hero versus Isaiah.
There we go. So we just switch around. And actually, my number 2 was Josh Prohibition versus M-Dog 20, purely because some of the moves they pulled off took genuine skill. I mean, at one point, I think M-Dog jumped up on, literally from standing, just jumped into a Hurricane Rana position, kind of reversed, spun himself round to go into a normal Hurricane Rana and pulled it off. The moves they were hitting was athletic. It's the sort of it's some of the wrestling that I love.
Yeah,
ultimately. So that's why I put that in number 2. They got 2.5 stars as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying about how like they were in a feud at the time in other promotions, like that match. If you look around for it enough on the internet, you can find footage of it. It's basically
I'm pretty sure that'd be easy to find.
Of it's a very familiar match then, but it actually is all the better for it because they look so precise and tight.
It looked smooth. It looked effortless. It didn't look like 2 guys that had just been fucking getting drunk and smoking weed in the back going, oh, let's just do some shit, and then rolled out there. You could tell they actually put some thought into it. But I appreciate it, despite the franchise Shane Douglas ruining it at the end. Yeah,
it was definitely basically the equivalent of Macho Man versus Dragon Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3, if you will. And that's not that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so what have you got for number 1? Because I'm going to be very controversial.
Yeah, guys, I'm guessing your number 1 is your 5-star match.
Yeah.
And for those of you who can't see us, I'm doing the inverted commas. My number 1 I gave to Briar Wellington versus Nosawa.
Nosawa, yeah.
I gave that 3 stars out of 5, just because it actually had a little bit of story going through it. You could kind of tell what was happening. It was one of the longest matches on all 3. It had actual wrestling moves and wrestling holds. There was a very clear baby face and a very clear heel. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, 3 out of 5 still isn't necessarily anything to write home about. But after all of those ones, after the first disc especially, I think that was just like, holy shit, we've actually seen somebody attempt to put on a wrestling story here. Because like we said, Josh Prohibition and M-Dog was more of a spot fest. Pondo and Necro Butcher was just hitting each other with shit. So yeah, I gave my number 1 spot to and I think this is maybe where you're getting your Bray Wyatt Brian Wellington thing confused.
When they announced his name, Wellington. I was like, why does that sound familiar? And it was, oh yeah, of course, Brian Wellington, who we went to see WrestleMania 31 at the MK11, and the next day I was like, oh my god, I love that guy. What was his name? Brian Wellington, and it was Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, but but this guy's Brayer, so it's almost I can see.
I guess it must have been like a subconscious thing, because I when that name popped up on screen, I was like, wow, that's amazingly close to Brian Wellington.
So I don't know. Is that not your number 1 match?
It's not my number 1 match.
So it didn't even make your top 5.
It didn't.
Holy shit!
If I could have had either a special honors match or a number 6 on the list, it would have been that one.
Okay. So I think that was clearly. Although it's only half a star in it, and that was only half a star better than numbers 2, 3, and 4. That was still by far the best thing that those could offer, as far as I'm concerned. Right. So what was your? Hang on, what was your number 1? Because I literally can't see anything that could come close as far as my ratings go.
What was the disc that you have no matches on your top 5?
Volume 1.
So from Volume 1...
Are you fucking serious?
I have ICP versus Doink and Doink.
Yeah. Is that the one I think I fell asleep in that because I was just
towards the end you were drifting off, yeah.
I was just, not like... And this is right, this is the thing now, to save everybody at home from watching this if they don't want to... I'm talking this card for Volume 1 was just squash match after squash match.
It really was.
After squash match. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squash matches, then a battle royal that lasted like 2 minutes, and for an 18-man battle royal, that's still super close, super quick. And then ICP versus these 2 people dressed up as Doink. But then inexplicably, I can't understand this. After the match, Balls Mahoney and Raven, the WCW, WWE and ECW legend, run out to make some saves, and I'm like, if you've got these 2 guys sat backstage, why not put them in some form of match and try and increase the I couldn't understand. That's like That's like I'm trying to think of a comparison that you'll know. That's like fucking going into a fight against Ultron with Fitz and Simmons from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and telling like Ward and everyone else. So you guys sit back here. We've got this. We're going to send these two kids out. And then when Fitz and Simmons die, that's when you send out the cavalry. Like,
exactly.
I don't get why you would do that as a booker.
I love how you've always been able to quantify wrestling to me in Marvel terms.
I find my ways. I find my ways.
Now that match, it got a 4 out of 5 initially, and then your reactions, you've just explained of like why were they just stood backstage?
Like, yeah.
It immediately jumped up to a 5 because effectively I realised in that moment that they had essentially trolled everyone there.
Yeah,
like it was such.
It's like oh hang on, Ultron's attacking. Iron Man, sit down. We're gonna send out Stan Lee in his cameo role to battle the most evil thing we've ever seen. You take your armor off. You sit down there. Thor, put the hammer down. Stan's got this. Go on, Stan. Go and do your cameo job. Go and take out Ultron. Like it just wouldn't happen.
No,
it just really wouldn't. It was just the most bizarre booking idea. Unless they just didn't want to pay them, and it was maybe cheaper. Like they do a run in for like $10 or something.
Exactly. I mean,
a money thing.
Why it made the number 1 spot was because it was a spot fest, but the spots were done well.
Yeah.
It had everything that JCW is in one match. The commentary was really good.
Yeah.
The wrestling, if you can call it that,
was passable.
The entertainment value was through the roof.
Yeah.
The crowd were like, really into it, and it kind of, I mean, as you say, like the first volume disc is just squashes. It's nothing until it gets. In fact, volume 3 is almost 2 hours long, and this one is just over 1 hour, and that goes to show how short the rest of that card is. It has more matches than the other 2 discs, but it's over in half the time.
Actually, I think Volume 1 actually had more matches than Volume 3.
Yeah, I think there's 6 on Volume 2 and 6 on Volume 3, and this one had 7, I think. But yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. It was just entertaining. And by the way, I just want to point out that we are recording this in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Crazy ass thunderstorm, and all of a sudden, the heavens have literally opened, and it is pummeling down with rain.
It's not even raining. It's like someone's turned on a tap. Like it's just torrential.
God's having a shower.
Yeah. But that was a little glimpse into Juggalo Championship wrestling, if you will.
I won't lie. I don't ever want to watch any of those again.
No, I don't blame you.
It was tough to watch, especially because my kind of fabled quest at the moment is to find the best pay-per-view match that WWF could offer, or WWE can offer, that's on the network at the moment. And yeah, none of those would come even close, unfortunately. No. But yeah, we've done it. I've, as I say, I'm a man on my words. I've always said we'll sit down and watch JCW. We'll do a podcast about it. I guess I apologise if I've offended any juggalos out there. It's just not my thing.
Juggalos should realise Ollie is a wrestling purist. He knows his shit when it comes to like talking about this stuff. Whereas me being a juggalo is like I can see the funny side of it, and I took it on those terms.
I think for me, to be called a purist, I know how you mean it, but I think personally, I still enjoy hardcore matches. I still love comedy matches. I do. Sometimes technical matches bore me. Sometimes spot fest become too predictable. But I know what you mean. I like wrestling as an entertainment form. I guess I'm the mastermind, so I guess I appreciate it on a more intellectual level as well. But then I guess the whole idea of juggalos, as you tell me, is that everyone's accepted. So if anyone's offended, that's kind of against your way of life. So you should just allow me to have my opinion.
Exactly.
I still sat down and I gave it a chance. I didn't just write it off without watching it. I get the feeling that the arc of improvement from 1 to 3 is stellar. Like that's going from backyard wrestling to a WWE B show. Over three discs. So as I say, if they carried on that arc, as I said, there's no reason to say why it's not perfectly possible. And I say if I ever have the time to dig it out when I'm taking a break from NXT and WWE, I might check out some JCW because I don't doubt that if they've clearly improved that much over 3 shows, then give them a bit more time and money. I don't doubt that they could put on some genuinely entertaining and wrestling-filled stuff. I was
going to say that the product that it is now, like it is like one of the most successful indie promotions in America. It's something that's going year round. They tour. You can catch them on Slam. I think it's called Slam TV. Is like how they broadcast it online, and then of course their version of WrestleMania, which is Bloody Mania, that happens every year at the Gathering of the Juggalos. So, and those are all available on DVD from hatchetgear.com. I definitely recommend checking it out now, because if you are into wrestling as less of a Juggalo, more of a wrestling fan like yourself, I think you'll find with that 10-year difference, like the quality of it is significantly different. But it still maintains like the shout out by the way to my boy Kevin Gill. He's doing the commentary now as well, which makes it a little bit more, gives it more credibility
than just 2 guys taking the piss out of themselves. But that's it. It wasn't all shit. I'd say disc number 1, there was a few things that I guess just had to be seen to be believed, like the Iron Sheik wrestling at whatever age he was. He shouldn't have been in there, but we gave it a go. There, it wasn't 100% crap. There was some good stuff in there. So as I say, hopefully this podcast shows that there's even some diamonds in the rough on these things. But for Figure 4 Radio, thank you very much for joining us today. I've been joined by MC Cryptid himself, Toby Hagen, making his brief return.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to coming back again. Yeah,
we'll see what opportunities we can find. Of course, check out our website, figure4radio.weebly.com. We've got blog posts on there now. We've got all our podcast history. Check us out on Podomatic and Stitcher. Instagram and Twitter is at Figure4Radio. YouTube is youtube.com/figure4tv, and I'm sure you know where we are on Facebook. But for now, my name is the Mastermind, Ollie Spring. We'll catch you next time on Figure 4 Radio.
Peace.
Figure 4 Radio.